I don't like to be boxed in. I almost like to prove to myself that I can do something that probably isn't aligned with how everybody else is told to do things. I had to learn how to communicate that. I was not, like, I grew up a quiet child. I wasn't taught to be expressive.
Do you have like a vision of like your future self that you're working towards, that you know you're working towards?
This is survival mode. Remember, there's no space. There's no time to figure out, well, what do I want? And nobody cares. I'm still working towards freedom. So I feel like I don't know what it looks like, and I never do. I know what it feels like, and that started this slow shift. So now once you start identifying it, the intention, the seed is planted. So your behaviors shift slowly, and there comes conflict because you've been operating one way for a really long time.
Together, your personal journey, your personal story, that intertwines with your career, everything you're experiencing in the workplace, what you put out, right?
Trying to have agency over my own self and my decisions and the type of relationships that I want. And some of that is going to be disappointing to you. I don't think there's a shift needed when you are responsible for the development of people, and it does matter how you show up. And it's not going to always be reflected in the objective project being met on time, the revenue number, but you are planting seeds in ways that you don't know how it's impacting someone, and you may never know.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they are connected together. Today's topic is about personal development. Ooh, is it personal development or relationship dynamics? I think I'm already making a mistake. Personal discovery and relationship dynamics. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and we have our co-host, Nastasia Brown, and our special guest, Janene Robinson, CEO of JNR Strategies.
Hi.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right. So tell us about yourself, Janene.
Well, so I grew up in Virginia, Northern Virginia. I now am based out of New Jersey. I started my career out as a certified public accountant. I worked for one of the big four accounting firms. And I took a couple of pivots after that, and wound up in a project management career for over the last 15 years. I started off in consulting, working for other consulting firms. And then my last corporate job was at a big financial services company in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think like a lot of other people, maybe when the pandemic hit, there was an opportunity to sort of just realign myself with what I really wanted my life to be. And that included work-wise. And so there was an opportunity for me to take a break from corporate. I had spent all of my career in corporate up to that point. And I had a lot of success as an accountant, as a project manager, but was exhausted. And I think, Jessica, I'm sure you can attest to this too, like being a project manager affords you this visibility into a company's culture. You're kind of on the receiving ends of not just directions and company objectives and goals and stuff, but like the people, the complaints and gripes of burnt out, frustration. This person don't know what she doing. He don't know what he doing type thing. And I think because I played sports growing up. My dad is a very accomplished basketball coach. I grew up watching mentorship and coaching and how important it is to lead people and the development of others. And I don't think there is a separation between personal life and work life. I believe in being kind and treating people with compassion. And that is a hard thing. That was a hard thing for me to come across in my corporate experience. Just that wasn't that wasn't that wasn't a natural experience that I had, and certainly not from the people that were charged with being people leaders and developing others. And so, by the time I left corporate, I was tired of that. To be quite frank, I was exhausted with it. Um, I was successful at getting projects done, but one of the things that I believe is one of my superpowers is being able to come into situations that feel dysfunctional, that feel toxic, that feel all over the place, and create some stability where people feel a little bit more confident in what they're doing from day to day. They have clear direction and can kind of see clearly their own, their like, can realign themselves a little bit more clearly with their day to day. And I think taking a step back, taking a step away from corporate, I was able to have space, one, to rest. And you kind of don't realize the environments that you've been in until you're out of it. And I didn't, because I spent my whole career in the corporate space. And look, I started out in public accounting. That's 80+ hour weeks off the jump. I'm early 20s living in Atlanta. Who's trying to work 80+ hours? But that was that was the culture, and that wasn't a unique experience to anybody. And so that's what I knew, and I'm grateful for my experience and the disciplines that I learned and the skill sets that were nurtured along the way. But personally, it took a toll, and I'm a Black woman. So operating in spaces where I'm not the majority anywhere, that came with its own challenges. I mean, I feel like that's not even honoring the things that have, like, I've experienced. But I got tired of all of it, to be honest with you. I got tired of all of it. I got tired of kicking and screaming for things that I had already earned years before. Having all these successes, burning myself out, all just for a little pat on the back, and all to be given more work to do. Was over it. And so I took about 6 months after I left corporate to rest and to really just sit with myself, reground myself in who I am, what I desire my life to be on all fronts. And work, the first thing that came up for me regarding work is that I wanted to work with people who cared about people. They cared about not just what they did, but they cared about how people felt, how people in close proximity of them and the works that they were contributing to the world, how they felt. And I find that working with people who care about others, but are also creative and brilliant in all of their ideas, I found more value in that. And so I sought out to realign myself to still work in a project management capacity, but working with people who were doing things doing other things. I worked in financial services and these like buttoned up environments. And at first I just wanted to work with startups, people who had these great ideas and were doing something different. And one of the first companies that I started working for as a freelancer was a leadership development company. They created programs centered around DEI and creating non-toxic work environment. Well, for me, that was like, ding, like I can relate. I'm attracted to that. And it was something non-technical, non-financial, all of that. And I got I was afforded a freedom to, as a freelancer, you can kind of work on your own terms. I get to decide who I work with. I get to decide what I do, and I get to decide when I don't want to do it anymore. And so that's how we got here over the last couple of years. I have been doing freelancing and recently decided to launch JNR Strategies, which is focused on working with visionaries and CEOs to help them organize strategies that reduce chaos and overcome organizational dysfunction, so that their people and those impacted by them can operate with clarity and confidence. So that's how we got here.
It's just so crazy how we even met, Janene, because everything you said just now, I'm like, yes, I experienced that. I know exactly what you mean. I'm doing the same thing right now. Like,
Yes.
it's insane. Like, oh my gosh. And Anastasia too, like,
Exactly.
she could attest to it as well. Like,
yeah. I don't, like I said, I don't think if I sat with it long enough, I almost can't believe that I was able to survive some of the environments that I was in. Listen, I feel like this. I feel like we spend most of our days, a lot of us, working to put food on the table, to keep the lights on, to provide for our families. And especially in this country, and this is my own personal opinion, I think Black people we are in like constant states of survival. I feel like no matter what your economic status is.
Yep.
And so to work as hard as we do, right, and as long as we do, it's one thing to be working somewhere and doing something that you don't really like, but you got to do it, right? You got to keep the lights on. It's another thing to compound that with mistreatment and dysfunction and chaos. Like I got to a point where like I just want to clock in, do what I got to do, and go home. I don't want to be subject to whatever you had going on at your house this morning. I don't want to be spoken to a certain way. I don't want to spend so much time trying to figure out if I look professional enough, if my hair is this way, if I can go into the nail salon on a Saturday. You see my nails now, going to the nail salon on a Saturday and being like, ooh, I can't show up. So I got a meeting on Monday. I can't show up to work. Like it felt, just for lack of a better word, it just felt dumb. It got to a point where it was like, look, this is dumb. This is dumb. I'm good at what I do. I have a track record of being successful. People like working with me. I do well. So why do I have to also jump over these hoops and like kick in doors and be on defense? And it just felt like this does not make any sense. Who wants to feel like that? Like I said, we are at work most of the day. Who wants to feel like that most of the day? At some point, it takes a toll. And whether we see it that way or not, it starts to be this, it impacts how you see yourself.
It does.
You know, and if it's not, it feels like it's not enough just to show up and be you and contribute your gifts. I got to do all this. That what it says to you is that you, on your own, with all your natural gifts, you're not enough.
Yeah.
And I don't believe I don't accept that. I don't accept that. So I think being in this new entrepreneurship, now listen, this is its own space, got its own challenges, child, and the girl is tired, okay?
Yes.
But I value freedom, and I value my time. I value other people's time, and the freedom of choice is something that I think we sometimes take for granted. And I really try. I have to remind myself some days, don't get me wrong, that I get to choose. I don't have to operate this way, or I don't have to work this way. I don't have to work 1 billion hours if I don't want to. It's enough to do what I do, and that's it, you know? So I'm happy to be in the space that I am in, but it's exhausting sometimes. But no situation is perfect, but I think I wouldn't trade it. I'll be honest with you. I'm grateful for my experience. I learned a lot of some of the habits that I have benefited me now, where I'm not bounded by all these rules and a structure, to be honest. I've been able to figure out how to redefine that structure, because that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur. And so I think a lot of my past experiences have taught me how to do that.
You know what's so crazy? Because it's like, you know, we go through school, high school, middle school, high school, and they prep you for college and your career. And it's like they program you into thinking like, yeah, I'm going to dedicate X amount of hours to these corporate positions, and I'm going to climb the corporate ladder, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to climb the ladder so fast. In 10 years, I'm going to be VP of so and so and so and so, whatever, right? But when you're actually in corporate and working with people who's been there for X amount of years, and it's like a sham. It's a total sham.
It is the biggest, listen, it is the biggest, like, wait a minute now. Wait a minute.
It's
I think
insane.
Stockholm syndrome too, with most of them that stay there that long and climb the ladder. It's like, okay, well, where else am I going to go? You know what I mean? Like, I've invested all this time, energy, did the work, because I found that in my experience, I recognized where at some point they were like me, but then they were broken, and then they decided to choose the other side of the fence and conform instead of standing up for the things that felt wrong, the things that they knew were wrong, and that just continued the broken process of these leaders that are supposed to motivating, their subordinates. They were broken. So how can you lead from a broken space?
Yeah. And I think too, I think if people really sat with themselves, I think that the thing we're chasing is not necessarily the title, that we're chasing something that we value that thing represents. You know what I mean? Like, for I can just speak for my experience. I took an accounting class when I was in high school. That's how accounting became the thing. I liked it. I liked computers. I was good with numbers. It was more, I'm good at this and whatever, right? But when I went through college and the Big Four would come to our school, and that as an accounting major, you were taught that this is the path. I have never been, I don't know if it's a nurture nature thing, but I don't think I'm wired to accept that there's only one way to do something, one way to be successful. I don't. So I was completely anti that path, especially when you got people on a panel sitting in front of you talking about they work until 2 a.m. Like, what is appealing about that? Like, I had a hard time with that. And so I feel like what I saw though is it afforded them a lifestyle that they liked. And for me, I always just wanted to be self-sufficient on my own, don't have to worry about nothing, don't have to, like, financially, I feel stable, and then I'll figure out the rest. And I think the way I even ended up in public accounting, a good friend of mine, randomly, I didn't have anything lined up. I say this, I don't know how I got here. It's by God's grace and God's grace alone, okay? Because I wasn't as intentional as I think people think I was about my path. I wasn't. I was searching for a freedom that I never really experienced growing up. I was searching for a sense of independence that I never really had. And so anything that pointed to that, I was like, okay, I'll do that. But it's really people who came in my life that were like, okay, we're going to go this way. We're going to go this way. And I just remember walking into an auditing class and my friend was like, Janene, what are you doing? It was my senior year. I had nothing lined up. And the internships that were lined up, I was like, it was at a bank. I ain't trying to do that. I'm not a bank type of girl. It wasn't my thing. So he was like, what you doing this summer? And I was like, He said, do you want to do a summer internship at one of the Big Four? And I was like, sure. He was like, all right, I'll put you in touch. And that set the path. That set my career path.
You know what's crazy, Janene? Like, people kill for those summer internships for those Big Fours. Like, people kill for those. Like,
and you know what's funnier? Within 6 months after I started, I remember my manager at the time, I got on a big client. It was like this big thing. And my manager, because I worked in audit. I worked in the audit practice, and it's its own culture. Everybody moves as a unit. Everybody's a team. Y'all go to lunch together. Y'all stay till 3 a.m. together. It's just this whole thing. And I remember within the first 6 months, and this was during a busy season, maybe after a busy season, We were all going to lunch, and I rode with my manager. And he said, "So how are you enjoying it?" It's a Black man. He said, "So how are you enjoying it?" And I was like, "It's okay." And he said, "Well, be honest. Do you like it?" And I said, "No, no." And he said, "Well, why not?" I said, "Because we're over here ticking and tying papers all day till 3 a.m. I just don't see the value in that." And he asked me, he was like, "Well, you don't see the value in instilling confidence in investors and things like that?" And I was like, "Not at my expense. I don't." Like, I don't. And I just remember, for me, I'm the type of person that it doesn't take me long to know, this is probably not going to be a good fit. There's an expiration on this. I can see the purpose in me being here, but I know that this is not the last stop. And I think 3 years, and I did well, but I want to say this, and I encourage other people to also have this mindset. I'm good. I was good at accounting. And I told, when I left, the partner who was in charge of performance reviews, he was like, "I was surprised to get your 2-week notice." And I said, "Well, why? I told you, like, this wasn't going to be my thing." And he said, "Yeah, but you're so good at it." And my response was, "But I'm good at a lot of things." And I think, I don't like to be boxed in. I almost like to prove to myself that I can do something that probably isn't aligned with how everybody else is told to do things. But I believe in listening to that, especially at where I'm at in life now, at my big old age and all my experience. There is power in that. And listening to that thing, whatever that is for anybody else, it's different for everybody. For me, it's a physical, I know that it feels like a box. And I don't belong in a box. I know that. And so I think it's important to explore all spaces of your being, because your gifts and your contributions aren't defined by what somebody else sees value in. Right? Like, we look for that a lot, but when somebody tells you you're good at that, that's the truth.
Yeah.
There's
I have
other
a question.
things, though.
I have a question, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned previously about the surviving mentality, right? So when you're in the surviving mentality, you're kind of just going and going and going and going. I got to do this, I got to do that, blah, blah, blah. So in those moments when you were in a survival mentality, what did you do to say, "Oh, wait, no. How did you get out of it to take a step back and say, wait, what am I doing?"
Yeah. I don't know if I did anything. I don't think it was an intentional thing for me. I think for me, when I feel really unsettled, it's two things. It shows up two ways for me. I feel really unsettled, or I feel way too comfortable. Like, I feel way too comfortable. Yeah.
Explain.
So, and this might be just a reflection of my personality, but when I'm not excited, but I'm complacent. And I can give an example. I was living in Charlotte before I moved to New Jersey about 3 years ago. I moved up here during the pandemic from a very comfy 3-story home to New Jersey, and the expensiveness to just breathe.
Right? So you're in the part close to New York.
I see it right out my window. It is, listen. And I remember saying to myself, I could live here forever. I could be in Charlotte forever and be comfortable. And I asked myself, but is that what you want to be? Some people, I'm sharing this to say, some people, the answer is yes. And I think that's why it's important for you to know you.
Right.
For me, I'm not somebody that thrives in complacency. That is not meant. I'm not here because I settled. I'm not here because I didn't make all these pivots. I didn't discover all these things about me because I like routine, and I like stability. Don't get me wrong, but I always feel it, like when it's like I'm bored.
Yes,
I'm
I'm the
bored
same
with my
way.
life. Not like I'm just bored with the thing in front of me, but like I'm bored with my life. Like
Yeah.
and that I like to feel inspired. I like to be around other people that are inspired. This life is short. We're not here for a long time, and we have gifts and things, uniqueness planted in us that I believe our purpose is to seek that out and deposit it into the world. There's something you're holding that nobody else can deliver. So how do you figure that out? By just
Staying in one place.
staying in one place. So I can't say, to answer your, I can't say it's something that I've done, but I think this has been in me since I was a kid. I have a curiosity about things. And I think because I spent a lot of time, I was a quiet kid. I was a quiet kid. My parents divorced when I was super young. I have an autistic brother. It's like a year and 20 days um, younger than me. And he is, they probably call it something different now, but there's a developmental challenge that he has. He can't, he's fine, but he can't live on his own.
Yeah.
And he can't, he's nonverbal. He's considered nonverbal. I mean, he talks, I understand what he's saying, but it's because I know him. But to operate as an older sibling and have, whether somebody told me it or not, I felt the sense of responsibility. I'm fiercely protective over my brother. Having to learn how to communicate and understand someone who can't communicate in the way you understand, and feeling responsible for advocating for that, it was like my only responsibility as a kid. That's how I felt. And so outside of that, I spent a lot of, it was quiet. I felt like I was really quiet, and I spent a lot of time by myself. And if I wasn't by myself, I was taking care of something or someone. And so I think spending as much time as I did in quiet, I don't know if this is nature or nurture, but I believe that whatever that is inside of me equipped me for the life that I've experienced, but it equipped me for awareness. Like I'm sensitive to other people. I'm sensitive to my own like voice. Like I'm sensitive, even if as a kid, I'm speaking about this as a grown up that has some emotional maturity. As a kid, I didn't have that, but I knew, like I knew that, and like I think I said it earlier, the thing that I was always seeking was independence. So that I knew as a kid, I just wanted to like have my own space where I could just do whatever. Because I loved music. I love sports. Like I said, I come from a sports family, but I love to like write. I love to draw. I love to do all these things. And there was only space for so much. I didn't come up with that. Like I wasn't afforded that type of opportunity to explore any and everything. My parents are working and we got responsibilities, and so I think that it manifested itself initially as a need for independence. And then as I got older, what does independence look like? And then you run into working 80 plus hours at a big four accounting firm. Well, it don't look like that. So let me go find something else. Maybe I just need a 9 to 5. Okay, this is cool for a second. Well, now I'm bored. Now I want to do other things. So I think just being curious about, I think as adults, we have a responsibility now. You have awareness, you have maturity. And I do think I think everybody's in their own space of that. I don't think there's anything wrong with being on autopilot. I don't think anything's wrong with that. I think there's certain seasons where that's needed. But I think it's important to be aware that you're on autopilot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's important to be aware when you need stability and when you need to stretch your wings a little bit, or when you need a shift. And I think it's important to also be strategic about that. So you're setting yourself up for success. So I don't know. I have a little bit of a free spirit, but I also value stability. so I'm strategic in my freedom. But I feel very confident in it now, but I'm finding that it's okay to be both. Like it's okay to be creative and have all these ideas and thoughts, but still be like, I don't play about my time. I'm very structured. I really don't. That's what it is. I think it's okay to be both. It served me well. And I think that's my gifting lies in that. Because not everybody has it. You start to run across people that like, you realize, oh, this is something that might be just unique to me. Like there might be shared experiences and overlap, but like, this is something that I deliver. And I think I used to feel very alone in that. Like, why everybody just want to be this? Oh, and then you feel weird because you don't just want to be this, you know? So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but
no. It's really great. You dropped a
lot of gems,
crazy,
a lot of gems.
Yeah,
a lot of gems. And like,
I think I
right off the bat,
like that.
I caught when you shared about your brother being autistic, I feel like in that situation, your compassion was nurtured. And then from the compassion, other life skills were built that you brought throughout your career. And that's what kind of, for me, most likely gave you the courage to speak up or even recognize, because I think a lot of people are afraid. They know and they feel it, but they're afraid to say it. And they stay in the space of that fear and just become complacent. And they stay there because they're just afraid of speaking on their truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think your self-discovery started in that moment when you were tasked with helping your brother finding his own way within family and then, the outside world, and being his protector, because that's not something that you can teach someone. That has to really come from within, like being compassionate and literally treating someone else as a human being, despite their role, despite their title, despite any of that.
Yeah. And I think that was I appreciate you saying that. I think that was always weird for me to understand. Like, why don't everybody, I don't know what some of y'all's experiences has been, but I have been on the receiving end. I mean, for the most part, I've met a lot of good people, but I have been cursed at. I have been disrespected. And I have hated going to work. I've had to tolerate somebody who I felt wronged me. Like where I am in my awareness and where I think my sense of that, it was hard to understand. You don't see yourself. You don't see how you like this. You like showing up like this.
I don't understand.
I don't understand it either.
Some people are like the first job I got. Yeah, like the first job I got out of college, out of my master's program, I had a coworker who's supposed to be my peer, right? And I picked up the job really quick, right? So this young Black girl, 20, 21 years old, doing your job, you're 10 years older, just as good, if not better. And I have better relationships with people in the office, right? So like he had thought I was lying about my schedule for my master's program. So much so to the point where he like called my school to see if my schedule was if I was telling the truth. So what you say about like people's awareness, like I have no idea why someone would think it's okay to call someone else's school to check on their schedule. You know what I mean? Like,
because you were threatened. Why they were trying to like find a reason or find a way to like take attention off of you and refocus it on him. Because you're always going to find those people, no matter where you are in the world. Yeah. Those people always exist. But for me, I feel like as a light keeper is what they refer to it as. You lean into your light, and whatever their issue is, that's on them. Once you recognize that, and that's a part of your self-discovery too. Like once you recognize You are on the fence, the side of the fence where you lean into your light. You recognize that the people that operate from a dark space, you have no control over that. You just let them
Yeah.
and focus on, you and what you want to do.
Yeah. And I think it's important to, and I had to learn this because usually what has happened to me in when I've like changed a job or something, I've made a decision that I'm going to change a job, or I'm going to move here, whatever. It doesn't happen instantaneously. Like once it's usually what happens is I make the decision, and then it doesn't manifest itself, that the decision doesn't actually happen until I've had to stay in a place for years before it was like there was an opportunity. And the one thing that I discovered, and I still believe, I don't believe in wrong decisions. I believe you make one decision and then you have experiences in that decision, and if it leads you to a different decision, cool. That is life to me.
Yeah.
But I believe you have an assignment in all the spaces that you occupy. You have an assignment, and I think kind of what you said is like focusing on yourself, but focusing on what your assignment is. And I like, good or bad, the experiences that I've had along the way, I have a sense of gratitude for them, because it brings you closer to you. Like it brings you closer to you. And I think that is, these are just my opinion. I just think this is life. Like I think, I have younger cousins who are just joining the workforce. And I think the world we live in obviously is a little different than when I joined the workforce. And there's a need for like instant success. And there's an expectation that it's always going to feel warm and cozy. Mm-hmm. And that's not life, but it's not intended to be that, because you are on a journey to learn you. Mm-hmm. It can't be cozy. Mm-hmm. That is not it can't be. So yeah, you kind of have some stuff that you have to learn how to navigate. Yeah. And there's skill sets that you are learning that you're so unaware of in the moment. You won't see it until later on. Mm-hmm. Like you won't appreciate it till later on. It won't come up until later on. But it's necessary. Some of this is necessary. You are being pruned for something that is in you, but it has to be nurtured. And some of the experiences that you have, I want to be careful how I'm saying this, because it's not to say you stay in harmful positions or things like that, but understanding, really, really checking in with you and understanding, okay, why am I here? Yeah. Because if it's, I'm not supposed to be here anymore. I have been occupying a space for way too long. I need to move on. Then that may be one thing. If it's okay, and usually I feel like circumstances will tell you, I haven't been like when I was working financially, because I desire to be self-sufficient and independent, I can't just leave this job. So what do I do while I'm here? And a lot of times for me, and I feel like this has always been the case, but I tend to create the space that I need within the spaces that I'm in. So I tend to create, I tend to create, I don't know how you say it. Like I find opportunities even to contribute in a way that pours back into me. So
give an example of that, like when you were at, let's say, the Big Four, for example, because, there's a lot of people that strive to work at the Big Four or in consulting with the Big Three, right? So like, how are you able to do that in such a crazy environment? You connect with people naturally. Like, I think that is what being in that environment taught me, because you all are going through the same stuff. It's not a unique experience, like I said, to work the hours that you do, or to work on a client that's a mess, or to work for a manager who's mean and whatever. And so you find comfort in the connections that you do make. And for me, there's one example I have that I can recall in corporate, but
um, there was a community of other Black professionals,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they had developed like things that we could go to and just connect with each other on outside of work.
Okay.
Plugging yourself in that way, but doing things that you want to do. So I didn't do everything, but if they were going to a concert, I'm going to the concert too, because I like music. You know, finding spaces. I worked at, this wasn't when I was at the Big Four, but I worked after the Big Four. I worked at a big bank, and this was a cozy job. It was a cozy job, but I felt really stifled in that job. But the bank was in partnership with a new local charter school that had just opened up, and they were just looking for volunteers to put together programs. I had not entered into project management space at this time. I didn't know what project management was. But now here I am. I just went to a meeting, and now we're putting together programs for this charter school, volunteer programs. Well, now I'm a program coordinator. I don't even know I'm a program coordinator. And now, you know, and then I end up in a career of project management and program management. But I feel like it's important to not lose yourself. You know, like the things that you naturally like. I love mentorship. I love volunteering. I love music. I love sports. So when there were opportunities, I sought that out. Like I sought out spaces to do the things that I just naturally connect. I just feel like it's not so much about being intentional about other people, so to speak. It's being intentional about you. Like it's really being intentional about, I like to do this. Chances are you are going to connect with other people who you're going to connect. It's easier to connect with other people naturally when you're just you're just doing the things that you like to do and what you want to do. You know, it's not as forced. And I think that for me, that is what helped me. And I gained real, true relationships with other people. And I think we're meant to be in relationships with other people. So I will never subscribe to like, yo, just be a lone wolf and keep your head down.
Right.
And because also no matter what your title is, how you show up has an impact on other people that you don't even know are watching. You know? Yeah. And so it's just important. I just feel like being aware. I mean, I feel like that's such a word now, but I don't mean it to be gimmicky. I mean it to be like really plugged into what you are being called to do in everything that you are doing, you know? Yeah.
So what do you have like a vision of like your future self that you're working towards, that you know you're working towards?
I'm still working towards freedom. So I feel like I don't know what it looks like, and I never do. I know what it feels like. And what it feels like to me is excitement. Like it feels exciting without it being burdensome. And I know that it does not, I think I feel like that could be a broad question. I feel like in work, I know it doesn't look like working for someone.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. I think I always want to be in partnership, and I always want to be in a position to mentor. And so I don't know what that looks like later down the road, but I think those will always be things that will be a part of my life. I want people to, at the basic level, I always want people to feel like they can be their true selves around me. Like people that I'm in close proximity to can feel free to be. And whatever that looks like, I want, that's what I desire for myself. I want people to feel good. I want people to walk away from talking to me or experiencing me saying, that was cool. I like that. That was a good, I laughed. That was a good conversation. Or, I have a little bit more clarity about what I want to do next or what I should do. I want people to feel encouraged and empowered. That's my aim. I don't know what it looks like. Depending on the day, it looks like being on a beach far, 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 far away with no laptop, no phone, laying in a body of water. That's, ultimately, and maybe that's what the freedom to be able to do whatever it is I want to do from day to day. That's what it looks like.
I think that, I was about to say the same thing, because like, that don't sound too bad. Being able to go on a really nice beach whenever you want.
Yeah.
So I have a question I'm pulling from or outline here, because as you were talking about moving to New Jersey, it felt like you pivoted at the time because you knew you were getting comfortable in North Carolina. And did you intentionally move to New Jersey because you knew that was okay? So did that move impact like any of your relationships with people? Okay.
Yeah. So I have family in North Carolina. And so, like, just to give context, I went to school in North Carolina, and then I worked for the Big Four in Atlanta, and was in Atlanta for a few years, 5 years, and then moved back up to North Carolina. And my dad and my stepmom and stepbrother, they all live in North Carolina. I knew within the first year I lived in North Carolina that this is cool, but I don't know how long this is going to last, type thing. It was really, I'm looking back, I moved back to North Carolina to be closer to family, because I felt alone in Atlanta, and I don't want to feel that way. So I didn't feel supported all the way. And so, but moving back to North Carolina, my like I said, my dad is listen, I'm a daddy's girl. I could talk about my dad all day long. I'm biased, but I mean this with objectivity. I feel he has such a light. He's a basketball coach, but that's like the vehicle. And he's successful at it, but he's impacted and influenced so many people. I grew up watching that. My dad is a big deal everywhere he goes. So the need to have independence and freedom, and now being in such close proximity of his light, was something that I knew was going to be challenging. Especially I was 30, I'm an adult now, living down the street from your parents at 30. And I hadn't been by my parents since I left for college. So I knew it was going to come with challenges. It was maybe 2 years into living in Charlotte where I had a project in New York. And so I spent a year in New York. I have really close friends between like I said, I grew up in Northern Virginia. So between the DC area and up here, I have really close friends. I spent a year up here and loved it. And I felt like it was more aligned with just my energy. Like, you just meet different people who have have their own journeys and are tapped into their journeys. And it's not looked at away. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be working a 9 to 5, but you working at the neighborhood bar up the street and nobody blinks an eye. Like, everybody's on their path, and I loved it. I found it, it was inspiring to me. So then coming back to Charlotte, after that project was over, I moved a little further away from my parents, still in Charlotte, but just a little further away. I moved into a smaller apartment because I got used to being in a small space and I liked the feeling. And then there was a need for stability. Like I feel like my relationships for most of my life, especially coming out of college, were long distance. My closest friends, we didn't live in the same city. My parents, I didn't live in the same city with them for a while. So even moving to Charlotte was an adjustment with my relationships, but it created this strain because I had felt like there were expectations of who I was, and I was still trying to figure out who I was, and I could not do it because I was so grounded I could only see myself through the eyes of other people.
Can you
so the things
elaborate on
that,
that more? Like,
yeah.
yeah, elaborate on that more.
Like I was I was showing up in a way that was in alignment with what other people wanted of me. But often it wasn't really what I wanted. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was creating a level of like, discomfort is not the word, but it was creating
A dissonance.
resentment.
Oh,
Yeah, dissonance. It was called, but it was creating a resentment. It was creating, it was bothering me. And I couldn't figure out, I couldn't figure out how to be me, and I couldn't even find the space to be who I wanted to be, because I was feeling responsible for the expectations that other people had of me. And so like I said, I grew up like as an older sibling, at least in, between my dad and my mom, being responsible for family. That's what I'm taught. Like but how do I do what you want me to do, but also do the things that I need to do that allow me to achieve the things that I want to achieve, which is independence. It's not dependence. It's independence. It's self-sufficiency. Like, how do I do both? And so I don't know. I had a big relationship at the time that blew up into smithereens. It did not end well. But it was the biggest check of my life. It was the biggest, like, wake up. What do you want? Because right now you out here chasing what other people telling you that you should want. Because that's what we were doing. I'm told that I'm supposed to have a 6-figure something career by this time. I'm chasing that. I don't even know if I want that. I'm told that I need to have a 9-to-5 and a stable career and a 401k. I'm told that I need to be married at a certain time. So I'm doing all the things. I don't even have an opportunity to. There's no space. This is survival mode. Remember, there's no space. There's no time to figure out, well, what do I want? And nobody cares. No. It doesn't feel like that. Like, I'm not saying it's true, but the feeling is nobody's asking. Nobody cares. Like, nobody's.
Yes.
No
one's asking you what you want to do. No one's asking you that.
They're only telling you, well, I wish you would have done this. Or,
yes. Or you could do this better.
Or you could do this. Or just make sure you do this. Or don't do that. And it was too many voices. It was too many grabs for my time. It was too many expectations, and it blew up. I feel like it blew up for me. So I think by the time I left Charlotte, I wanted to leave Charlotte years before I left Charlotte. This wasn't a wake up one day and decide. I was in therapy at the time too. I had just started. So I had now had space, and now I had somebody asking me, well, what do you want? What do you want to do about that? And I would, and I had no answers. Well, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. I just having that space. We don't know it. I wasn't taught to create that space for myself. My parents weren't taught to create that space for themselves. You can't, so I as I'm talking, I just want to say that a lot of times the discomfort or the things that you feel like are happening to you, it's almost like there's an opportunity there to like explore a little bit, I think I used to feel like things were just happening to me and people were just doing these things, and this person talked to me this kind of da, 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 and what is that telling you? Like and I didn't have space to figure that out until I was in therapy, and now we're talking about these things, and in that I started to really define the type of relationships I want and what I want for my life. And that started this slow shift. So now once you start identifying it, the intention, the seed is planted. So your behaviors shift slowly. and there comes conflict because you've been operating one way for a really long time. And people in close proximity to you, whether it's your people at home, your friends, the people you work with, they're in close proximity. So they feel the shift. And so with shift, while it's freeing to find alignment, the impact of that to people that you love, like people, that is a hard adjustment. I just talked to I'm a daddy's girl through and through. We could a whole nother pod for just how I feel about my dad, right? But even in my shift, my conflict, there was conflict with my dad. I'm not, it was this bad. I am trying to have agency over my own self and my decisions and the type of relationships that I want. And some of that is going to be disappointing to you. I can't come to all the dinners. I don't want to come to all the dinners. I may not be able to come on Christmas Day. I can come Christmas Eve. Like it was a struggle because I am the responsible, I am the one that just you can rely on to just make things happen and do it. And I was making an intentional decision and I was being held accountable to that decision in therapy about not like being prioritizing the things that Janene wanted to do. Yeah. So I feel like the move to Jersey, it wasn't a new thing. That seed got planted after I did the project in New York years before I moved. I had decided, I woke up, it was a bad day. I decided I'm going to quit my job today because I'm tired. I had some experiences after already having a really tough project that I was successful at it, but it took a toll. I'm gonna tell you my cue for when it's time to move, something has to change. Because of my experience with the Big Four, I found there were times where I'm crying during the day.
Oh, wow.
I'm crying on my way to work.
Oh, no.
And so when I find myself, when that starts to be a familiar space again, oh, nah, we're not going back to that. We're not doing that. And so I was just like, I had to talk with my manager. I was like, yeah, I think I'm exploring leaving. And listen, God knows his daughter, because when I'm done, because I've tried to like make this work and tried to feel comfortable here, tried to make this code. I've done well. I've done all the things that I physically, mentally, emotionally know to do. And I'm still like feeling whatever I'm feeling. It's not going to change. So I have to get out of here because this is going to drive. This is not going to be good for anybody. And my manager and I had a conversation. I stayed for one more year and then the pandemic hit.
You stayed for one more year after that? Girl, you better than me. When I'm like, it's time to go. It's time to go.
This is divine intervention. This is divine intervention because I was going to leave with no plans. That's the type I will be disruptive if you leave me to my own devices. Like I will. And I remember praying before going into the conversation with my manager, like, God, you know where I'm at. You know where I am at. So I pray that, like, you know the words about to come out of my mouth. So I pray that you intervene, just intervene. And he did. And I was good for a year. Then the pandemic hit and they offered everybody in the company an optional severance package. Very generous. You had to get approved for it. And usually the high performers, they're not ready to let you go. So I had many conversations from people about, like, do you want to stay here? We can put you here. We can do this here. We can do that here. And then I had a final conversation with my manager. And he asked me, he said, so let me ask you this. If you don't get approved for this severance package, are you going to leave anyways? I said, yes. He said, okay. I was approved the following week. And it was a generous package where I could take a year and a half off and do nothing if I wanted to. My medical insurance was taken care of. So you understand, like,
that's amazing.
If you leave me to my devices, I will flip this whole table. And that's why I say I feel like God has really intervened,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on my behalf. But I also, in that same sentence, I knew I wasn't going to be here long. And all it was like, okay, so how do we make this shift? It's something got to happen. And I felt like I was awarded something that was in alignment now, that was gonna, you know what I mean? It set me up to be able to move up here, you know? And I just think, I say all that to say, I still stand on just being you have to be one here. You have to check in often, you know?
So for those who don't know how to be one, right? What would be your top 3, maybe 3 to 5 suggestions on how to get started with being one with yourself?
Journaling, I feel like, is always, I feel like whatever it is, it doesn't have to be journaling, but like creating a discipline of having dedicated time with yourself. So whether it's like working out for some people it's a walk outside, some people it is journaling or meditating or praying, whatever. But having developing a habit and a practice of having just a space for yourself in the day that's yours. And that's hard because we're all just like on this doing. So whether it's a reminder on your phone, whether it's to go take a walk or to whatever, but like having quiet. And it's hard to do this era of social media where we're just constantly plugged in to our phones and stuff. And I don't necessarily, because I grew up before any of this stuff. So I'm not
in the bubble.
I'm not, even now. Yeah, it's easy for me to just not be on my phone. I desire to not be on my phone.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that case, and like I said, I've been in therapy. So having that intentional space.
Yeah.
And it could be to like a hobby, just something you go to once a week. I did creative writing when I first left corporate. I took a creative writing class just to have space to write and whatever flows, you know. What else? I think those are the 3 main things. Like if you have a hobby and something you want to explore, I think somehow building a practice where you can incorporate that in your week at least. I think just giving yourself space to do that, and things will come up for you. Things that you enjoy, things that pour into you, that excite you.
Yeah. That's really good.
So really quick, I wanted to go back to when you were talking about your relationship with your dad, because something came to me there too. So when you talk about unconditional love, that's also a huge factor with these relationships, or changes impact. So during our self-discovery, and I can show you my phone screen, like it's the phases of the moon. I feel like individually we all go through those phases, right? And the people around us, if they can't understand when we're going through those changes, that's when the conflict comes in. That's when the resentment comes in, because they can't figure out what we're going through. They're trying to help. They're trying to, evoke what they think should be done as opposed to just accepting what is.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate for therapy too, because that was actually when I resigned from my previous employer to end up at one of the big 3s, because I recognized in therapy that this is my decision. This is not, you're going to continue telling me I'm a high performer. You're going to continue giving me hidden bonuses behind closed doors, but not promoting me. This is like, I'm going to take my power back and I'm going to leave, because if I stay here, I'm going to end up like you. You know what I mean? And it's in those moments where you recognize what's happening and you make the decision to say, well, what am I going to do? Because this is not what I want to continue doing, So as you were talking, like, that's what dawned on me, like the people or changes or choice for change impact, they're not going to love you less if they genuinely love you to begin with. So it should be a
Right.
negative impact to say, well, you're not the Jessica I once knew, you're not the Janene I once knew, so it
Yeah.
shouldn't be a problem. You know what I mean?
It shouldn't. Yeah. And I also will say too, I think that it's okay if you're no longer in
That too.
alignment with
That.
the people. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you never know what, you never know where those relationships will come back around, if at all, you know. But I think it's important too. And I feel like there's a, like society wise, there's this tone of like alignment and boundaries and say no, and this whole discipline of like, I feel like because when you operate on one extreme for a certain part of your life and you're learning a new discipline, naturally we just operate on the other side of the extreme,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So now we just cut people off left and right,
Yeah.
da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I've learned is that there's a piece of this just like letting go, like where you just let go and let things be.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes your relationships with people. Sometimes it's worth conversation, and sometimes it's worth sorting through conflict, depending on what that relationship is to you. Like, you know, but sometimes it's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's just different. It's different. I've had to learn that. I mean, I think the change of seasons never stops. Just you never get to a place where everything is in perfect alignment. Again, I don't think that's what life is supposed to be. I don't think so. But I think it's an important lesson to kind of learn to just let things be, have conversation, address. I'll be honest. There's certain relationships that I have had where there's no need for a conversation. It's just what it is. And then there's some relationships where there's a need to at least acknowledge that, hey, we're in different spaces. I can't show up the same way. You may not be able to show up the same way. Relationships like with my dad, and I'm grateful for my dad because my dad is a very understanding and patient. Like my parents, all of them, including my stepmom, were educators. They worked in high schools. So the capacity to navigate the emotions and feelings of other people, I feel like my parents have. And I think my and I don't know if it's they were taught, I don't, but I think it's why they all did so well in their own profession. And I think it's why people love them and adore, and that why they've had the impact that they've had. So even going through conflict with my family, there's certain family members that, well, you just don't get it and we just don't get it and it's fine. And I'll see you at Christmas. Love you, like all that. But people who are in close step with you, they feel it differently. And if that, my dad means a lot to me. So well, I feel like that doesn't even speak to how I feel about any of my parents, but my relationship with my dad means something to me. And I think his capacity to understand that there's pieces of this that he may not understand. And as a parent, I don't know what it is to be a parent. I think wanting your children to succeed, but also like loving your child, you know, like just loving them, but also know there's a piece of their life that they're on their own journey. You don't really have a lot of say in that, but you're still trying to maintain relationship. You know what I mean? And I think it does take adjustment from everybody. You know, I had to learn how to communicate that. I was not I grew up a quiet child. I wasn't taught to be expressive. And I learned how to be expressive on the basketball court, and that's competition. That's a different type of animal. And I was all those things. But in conflict, in relationships, that's not something I learned until therapy, until and then you're confronted with those things. And then it's like an opportunity to like test that muscle, build that muscle, you know, and the people that love you, like you said, will be patient with you through that, will also hold you accountable, will also may call you out where it's like, girl, you're doing a little too much though. So let me just check in, you know, like,
Do too
you know,
much.
but I think it's important to let things be. I don't, because we operate in seasons, making, I want to be careful how I say this, because I feel like there's all decisions to be made in relationships, and to each his own, right? And everybody's decisions on where they put those relationships, whether relationships need to end and new ones need to begin, or just dynamics need to shift. That is a personal decision. But sometimes putting boundaries up doesn't necessarily mean kicking people out your life.
Yeah.
Sometimes you being in a new season, we're all in seasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's just important to remember that we're all in seasons, and the same compassion that you want other people to have for you in your season, to make sure that you can offer that to the ones that you love, the relationships that you want, you know?
Some feedback.
I heard echo.
Yeah.
I think it
Hold
froze.
on 1 second.
Oh, you froze, Nastasia.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we had like some kind of glitch just now because it kept echoing. But yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And it's so funny. Like, I feel like you're talking about me the whole time you're talking about yourself.
I know. Every time Janene was talking, I'm like, yep, went through that. Yep.
But isn't that, and I feel like as women,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it's like to be anybody else. And so I'm not being dismissive of anybody else's
Right.
plight. I think as women at a very young age, responsibility that's what we are taught.
Yep.
And it may not be explicitly said, but what your position is in your family, what you're being tasked with, what the expectations. I just feel like women in this world, but we are taught to have this immense amount of responsibility for others in some capacity. And it feels like when you operate, like I was talking about at the beginning, it's the same thing at work. When you come into work and this is what it is, you're this mistreatment, all this kind of things that you may encounter. At some point, it impacts how you see yourself.
Yeah.
And so the longer you're in the longer you are, and as kids, we don't have authority over our lives as children.
Mm-mm.
So you are subject to the environments that you're in. You're subject to your parents, your family dynamic, and so there's conditioning that happens, right? Some for better, some for worse. But I feel like as women, we are taught very early on who we are supposed to be.
Yep.
And so we don't even know until later, until you're about to just explode. I feel like it just comes out like that, where you don't even know that, I don't even, like, I get to decide. And I feel like the more conversations like this, we don't know it, but as human beings, you give other people permission to show up based on how you show up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but we're all like kind of navigating, thinking that we're just navigating in our own like environments and feeling. I think I don't know how it is for everybody, but I think we can easily feel like our experience is not shared.
It's
and
not.
yeah, and then sometimes you feel I still deal with this. I've just gotten a little bit more comfortable in it, and maybe it's because my age, but I used to feel guilty about not wanting for myself what other people wanted for me. So like when you were saying people like they fight over these big four, that the big four was a thing. It wasn't a thing for me. You know, it wasn't that. It wasn't what it was to you isn't what it is to me. Right? What it was for me is like a means, a stepping stone or whatever. And so you feel I feel I struggle with this when I'm just wanting to do my own thing, do something that's different than other people around me are doing, maybe, or maybe it's not in alignment with like what they're expecting of me. It feels like, well, dang, you start to second guess yourself sometimes. And then you feel guilty about not valuing the thing that they value the same way that they value.
Yeah.
It's easy to like that conditioning. It takes a long time to develop new habits, to recondition your mindset. I'm talking, no matter what it is, it just takes a long time to do that. So the default always exists. Like the default is always like the people pleasing. I've dealt with that. I
Yeah.
that has been my plight.
Same.
And it's so easy. It's so easy to get to go back into
it's very
that.
Easy. Especially like with family or people that you care about. Oh my God.
It's the hardest thing to navigate with people who you love and you know who love you, because there's nothing wrong. That's the thing. There's nothing to point to. You didn't, I mean, some people it may be something to point to, but like what I'm talking about is when there's no problem. It's just things are different. And when you're in it, you don't know. Sometimes I don't know I don't know that I'm in a new season. I just know that I know I'm really trying to figure something out right now. You know, I don't know how to tell you that.
Yeah.
I just know I don't want to go to Christmas dinner today.
And you want to let them know that you're not crazy either. Like, I'm not crazy. I'm just going through something right now. Okay. Like, give me some space.
When I told my, I think it was my mom I told my mom I was moving to Jersey. I think she has gotten to the point with me where it's like, okay, Janine. And like that would have felt away a long time ago. And now I think my parents just like, this is me. And I think the more you stand in who you are, the more people just like, they will adjust, they will shift.
That is true.
You know, they will shift for no matter what it looks like. They will shift.
And you know what?
You know,
then they start to get inspired too.
Mm-hmm. That part.
But again, you don't know. That's what I mean. I feel really passionate about this. You just don't know what seeds that you are planting. You don't know. You don't know what you're inspiring. You don't know what a hello to a stranger on the street, what it does for them. You don't know. And so being intentional about how you show up matters. It matters. We're all like connected in some kind of way.
It's true.
We are. So I mean, I know we were talking about work earlier, and I think one of the reasons why I've shifted into wanting to work more with people leaders and visionaries is because I don't, in my corporate experience, the people who became managers were brilliant in what they did. They succeeded, have the accolades to prove it, the letters, the credentials. I can count on one hand and probably like maybe 2-3 managers that I can think of that I was like, he's a good leader. She's a good leader. I feel good working with this person.
Yeah.
Where I don't think there's a shift needed when you are responsible for the development of people, and it does matter how you show up, and it's not going to always be reflected in the objective project being met on time, the revenue number, but you are planting seeds in ways that you don't know how it's impacting someone, and you may never know. That's the thing, you may never know. You know, and so I just feel like it's really important to be intentional about that, creating environments where people feel safe and they're healthy, where they are accountable, where they have clarity, where they are operating in a way where they can be successful. That is, not everybody has that skill set. And newsflash, not everybody who's a manager and who's a people leader are equipped to do that.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Know?
Some people, they get put into those positions just because they've been, a contributor for so long. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important just to recognize that was always the struggle. And I think that was an indicator for me along the way that a lot of the positions that I left, or the jobs, or the pivots that I took, or whatever, one of the reasons why I just ended up going into consulting and working at a consulting firm is because I got tired of working for managers that I felt like you either don't care about my well-being or you don't know how to lead. And I think because I feel like I'm gifted in leadership, like I'm gifted in certain aspects of leadership, where like taking care of people, and I can think of examples even before when I was a kid playing basketball and being coached by somebody who coaching was just a hobby, and it was also a position of power.
Mm.
And you're coaching young girls, and you're responsible for the development of young girls, but you are also talking to them crazy, and you calling them out their name, and you doing a bunch of stuff. I grew up with a coach, seeing what a coach looks like through my dad, who taught discipline, taught accountability, was tough on you, but who was loved and respected, like knowing what that looks like, and knowing when I'm not in environments like that. And I think that is the experience that I've had. Like I end up being the one people look to advocate for. I end up being the one that you pull me aside for a one-on-one after a meeting just to get it off your chest. I end up being the one to do those things. And I think I feel passionate about like people. I want people to feel empowered. You're not here by mistake. Like you're here, your space in this place is yours, and not feeling beaten down by that. I mean, there's so many other things that we have to navigate outside of the four walls of a job. I don't want to have to come in here and have to fight you guys too, or fight to be seen, or fight to be valued, or fight to be heard. And the people leaders have a lot to do with that. They have a lot to do with forget the company culture. You have a lot to do with the culture of your team.
Yep.
So you can say, well, this is how it is, and that's what you convey to your team, and your team will follow that, and whatever, there will be consequences to that. Or you can advocate for something different here. You can make a decision and say, I want my team, anybody that works with me, I want them to feel like X, Y, and Z. And I didn't have a lot of those experiences. I probably had 2 that I can think of. So I think that's important, because I don't think there's I think what the pandemic taught us is there is no separation between personal life and work life.
Yeah. There isn't.
You carry one into the other.
Mm-hmm.
You was cussing somebody out in the parking lot coming into the job today. Chances are I'm gonna be on the receiving end of whatever that was. There is it.
Yeah.
It matters. It matters how we show up. I feel like that. So yeah.
Yeah. And that, honestly, like, thank you so much, Janene, for everything you shared, because that's the purpose of this podcast, is to show everything is connected together. Your personal journey, your personal story, that intertwines with your career, everything you're experiencing in the workplace, what you put out, right? And so like I'm very, very happy that you've touched on like so many things that I personally value, your self-awareness, your own journey, discovering who you are, right? Because I've recently gone through like a whole other pivot as well, and everything that you spoke about, I've experienced, right? Yeah. And it's everything you said is just so important. And I thank you so much for sharing that, I think we're all set. Like, I feel like we could keep talking for like,
I could go on and on and on if you don't stop me. But I appreciate this. I appreciate being a guest and being asked. Again, Jessica, we met like interviewing for a role, and that's it. And now look at the conversations that we're having, and look at the space that you're creating for other people to experience that. Like, it matters.
It does.
It just matters.
It does. I don't even think I shared with Nastasia how we met. So like Nastasia, I think I had applied for like a freelancer, like project manager position on Upwork. Mm-hmm. And so Janene interviewed me and Janene interviewed me and I was like, I like you. Let's stay connected. You know, I didn't get the job, but it's fine because
be happy you did not.
You know, so just going with the flow, you know, because I was like, I like Janene. I don't know about this role, but whatever. I like Janene. Let's connect on LinkedIn. And, you know, that was how many months ago? I don't even remember.
Like, I don't remember. It was like the summer.
It was like in the summer, like.
Yeah, like but that's an example of like, you don't know what seeds are being planted. So my intention was to show up and interview. Your intention was to discuss this job. None of that, it didn't unfold that way because I believe that wasn't even the intention of it. But we don't know that in the moment.
And you know what's funny? I was literally like at the tail end of my autopilot. Like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I need to build this up. I need to build up my firm. I need to do that. Like, so I didn't even, you know what I mean? Like I had no idea. I had no intention at the time of starting up a podcast either. You know, like
that's awesome. Oh, that makes the story even better. You see, you're just planting seeds and you don't know where that leads. So I just encourage you to continue to like go with it. Like whatever you feel called to do, like continue to move forward, even if it looks different. Like even if it's like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I'm just gonna do it. Like, you know, you just do it because there's something in you that has to be delivered, you know? So I'm happy that we were able to connect. I've never done a podcast, but I love podcasts. And I would love to do one. I would love to do one, but this is my first time actually doing one. And that's how I was like, oh, this is exciting. Okay. So I didn't know this was going to come out of it either. It's great.
It's so awesome. And you know, one thing I actually want to ask you, how can people find you if they want to have your coaching or mentorship or anything?
Yeah, so I'm just launching. So right now you can catch me. You can email me at hello@jnrstrategies.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at Janene Robinson. And connect with me that way. Website coming soon. All those things coming soon.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Nastasia, any last words?
No, just thank you. And then something dawned on me too. So since you don't have your own podcast, maybe we could do a monthly thing. So like Janene's corner or whatever you want to do, make it your own and start here. And then it evolves into whatever you want it to be.
Listen, don't get me. Listen, I'm saying yes to a lot of things. So
it's true though.
I would love to explore that.
Yeah.
If that's an opportunity, I would love to explore. We can talk more about that for sure. That would be cool.
That sounds awesome.
I got lots of things to say. I got opinions about everything. Okay.
We want to hear it. We want to hear it because we're probably thinking the same thing. Like literally everything you said, Janene. I'm like, yep. Oh yeah, I experienced something similar. Yeah, I love my dad too. Oh, this is awesome. All right, so I guess I'm going to close out. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll put Janene's contact information in the description below. And so, yeah, that's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Thank you.